Good day and welcome to Robust Ramblings. Today I'll be speaking with Alec Avierinos, multi-startup entrepreneur, really someone with a passion for healthy living, sustainability, for entrepreneurship in general, and someone that I hope that you can learn a lot from. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Okay, cool. So good morning. This is Gideon Nas speaking. I'll be your host for today, and with me I have a good friend, and I feel it's a privilege to call you a friend, as well as a mentor, as well as a colleague, Alec Avierinos. Alec, I'm going to leave you to share a bit about yourself because I'm going to get some of the details wrong, and I don't want to get your age wrong. So would you mind just...
That's the easy part.
Yes.
For the next month, I'm still 50.
So you're on the latter part, the wrong side of 50 at the moment.
Well, that depends. That's a matter of opinion.
Yeah. It's wonderful to have you, Alec. And, I actually mentioned this in a previous discussion that we've had between Sergio and myself, is we really need to get you onto this because you've got so much experience and stuff that you've learned in life, I think especially in business and in your own walk with the Lord. And I would just like to pry into some of that today, if that's okay.
With pleasure.
Awesome. Alec, maybe you can just start sharing a bit about your own journey. I mean, what age you actually met the Lord, as well as where your desire and passion for entrepreneurship and business comes from.
Sure. Entrepreneurship and business started, I suppose, when I was already a young kid. So I've always either been trading in marbles or breeding rabbits and pigs and selling them to the pet shops. And so the entrepreneurship part didn't need to be developed. That was there from an early age.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and then the next question you asked was when I met the Lord. I was at Technikon in Port Elizabeth at the time. So I grew up in a Greek Orthodox home and had wonderful parents, very committed Christians. So from that, I feel very privileged to have had really good role models in my parents, and they were happily married up until my dad passed away a couple of years ago. And so from my side, I got tricked into giving my life to the Lord.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's I was at the time. I was actually staying at a Christian lodging place in Port Elizabeth, and there was I was very involved in bodybuilding at the time.
Okay,
and there was a young lady that was there that kept asking me to go to youth group. And I kept finding all sorts of excuses not to go. And then she actually set up a meeting for me to meet with a guy that she knew who just happened to be the youth group leader and also a provincial bodybuilder. And so I went to meet with him, and about half an hour after meeting with him, everybody started arriving for youth group.
Oh, wow. But that was a smart move on her part.
Yeah, I suppose that's where I, for the first time, really experienced the love of the Lord. And it was a really special group of youngsters that were meeting. And from there, they invited me to join them, and I went to Harvest Church in Port Elizabeth, and at a service there, they had an altar call, and that's where I gave my life to the Lord.
That's
about 90.
That's really cool. Now, you mentioned something now that I know you're very passionate about. So you said you did some bodybuilding. Now I know you've got a very big passion for health. Why don't you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've always enjoyed sport, and I've always enjoyed more although I did play some cricket and soccer and very little rugby at school. I enjoyed the individual sports. I got when I was still at school, I got into surfing and bodybuilding. And then when I went to the army, I also did powerlifting and weightlifting, and had provincial colors in all of them. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And sports always been a major part of my life. Up until about 23, 24, when my focus turned at that stage more to business. And then I basically lost my way a bit from a sport point of view till I was about 35
So,
and properly overweight. And then I decided to do something about it.
so what happened at 23 to 25? I mean, you said that's where the business side started.
Well, I mean, I got married and we started a family, we started a business, and they just really, it wasn't a priority. The priority was building business, and family and all the commitments that come along with that.
Yeah. And that business, what exactly did you guys do, and why did you decide to go into that type of venture?
Yeah, so while I was still at school, I actually got into composites and making surfboards initially. So I used to repair and make surfboards. So that was my first business.
That's really interesting.
Then I got into the high-end composites later, and I was building carbon fiber and Kevlar bits and pieces for motor racing and motorcycles. And then I got asked if I could make a radome. So we got into making radomes, and
What is that? Sorry.
a radome it's a weatherproof enclosure for it's normally satellite and transmission equipment, but it's basically you'll see them, they look like overgrown soccer balls at the airport. So the radar installation is inside that, and it transmits through it's normally a composite sandwich, fiberglass sandwich construction, so it doesn't interfere with the radio waves.
Okay.
There's nothing metallic. So yeah, and then from that, the main business was building telecommunication base stations for the cellular industry. So from the birth of the cellular industry in the country, we had one and then another business building telecommunication base stations. So all those white overgrown cooler boxes that you see underneath the towers.
Cooler box, nice description.
Yeah.
I mean, so you were 25 years old, right? More or less when this started.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I got married at 22, and yeah, was doing composites for a while. So yeah, probably around about 25, 26, somewhere around there, we got into the telecommunication industry.
So for all practical purposes, I think most people would see that as quite young for starting a business. So what helped you to take the leap in actually starting something? And I mean, that was the start of the telecommunications industry. So it wasn't something that you really knew a lot about.
Well, prior to that, when building all the composites, I had a company called Composite Engineering, and we merged, and in the process, I had a fallout, and they tried to force me to sign a restraint of trade. I refused to sign that, so I got fired from my own business, basically, and yeah, then Rona and I had to make a decision on whether to start up in business again, or to actually, the other option was to go on a mission ship and travel around the world doing missionary work.
Sure.
And I said, from a wisdom point of view, if we do that, when I come back, all my knowledge and contacts in the industry will be obsolete.
Yeah.
And it'll be very difficult to get started. So the decision was to start from scratch again. At that stage, Rona was still studying teaching. We lived in a little flat in Sunnyside at the Teachers Training College. and I started trading in composite raw materials, buying and selling um, composite raw materials, and then it sort of developed from there. So
That's interesting.
wasn't I won't say I was forced into it, but it was a decision that we made. So from day one of married life, we've always been in the entrepreneurial space.
So, I mean, we know that statistically speaking, the majority of new startups will fail, right? Because that's just how it works, and there's many reasons that people have for that. In my own experience, I know after starting a few businesses of my own, the moment one fails, I think the majority of individuals have some form of insecurity that's either highlighted or that is created when that fails. Because you might think, it was my fault that it didn't fail, or I wasn't good enough. Now, were there some of those things that you realized, firstly, as soon as the business did fail, or maybe even shortly prior to or after that? And how did you get through that to start the next one?
Yeah, look, it's very easy to blame external factors, and I have had businesses over the years that have been liquidated and closed, um, and ultimately you have to take the responsibility for that yourself. So, yeah, I've been accused more than once of being an ostrich, an optimistic ostrich, and as an entrepreneur, there's always um, the possibility that things and orders and will materialize, and often they don't. So managing your cash flow is probably the most crucial part of making a success out of the business. It's way more important than whether or not you're running profitably.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment that you made now, being the optimistic ostrich. I laugh at that because it sounds funny, but I think on the other hand, I would consider that as one of your strengths, not being an ostrich, but being optimistic. And also, you are, in our context at least, a visionary leader. You don't like to be involved in the detail of the day-to-day things, even though you can be. But you try to create the bigger picture that other people need to be buying into. So, I would say that is a strength. And also, I think, from what I've seen, at least in the few years that we've now known one another, is that it's actually something that helps, I think would help keep you going, even when there is a failure on the one end, because there's a new opportunity on the other. And you really have the ability to see opportunities where other people don't see opportunities.
Yeah, I think that part of it comes naturally, and being creative and innovative comes naturally. And I can see and opportunities, and often, let's put it from a timing point of view, too soon. So it's timing is really key too. So if you have a brilliant idea and your timing is out, it makes it much more difficult to make a business success out of the idea than if your timing is correct and there's actually a bigger demand. So having other people in the space and other competitors, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just showing you that there is an opportunity, that you can, that there is business there to be had.
Yeah. It's interesting. So, I mean, in the telecommunications industry, you were quite at the forefront of when that came to be. And we haven't spoken about this yet, but currently you're working in the blockchain industry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe I see a trend there of you recognizing opportunities that, as you mentioned now, might be premature to where the world's at. I mean, the blockchain industry has been one that's maturing over the last few years a lot, and we see that increasing. How do you go about recognizing these opportunities? Because I'm thinking that someone who might be listening think, I can't think of any new idea. I remember in university we had to do this exercise where we had to create our own businesses, and everyone wanted to think of a new idea, but like no one could actually think of something new. We struggled to innovate that, and I know a lot of it comes through experience. Like the moment you see opportunities for the first time and you start doing something about it, then you start seeing more and more opportunities. But are there like certain habits that you have? Do you read certain material? Do you listen to certain things that help spark these creative or innovative ideas that you typically do have quite frequently?
I wouldn't credit anything that I listen to that. And in in fairness, I mean, so the telecommunication industry basically got to a point where it was saturated.
Mm.
So that we started branching out and building computer labs for schools, for the education department, initially private sector. Then, in addition to that, it was internet cafes. And then started doing work for the public sector, schools and school classrooms and things like that.
Yeah.
And the things came unstuck there. And yeah, so from a take responsibility point of view, I should have seen the writing on the wall sooner. And doing public sector work in South Africa is not the easiest.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically lost the business in the process, managed to salvage the IT part. And the big difference there is that you don't have a huge cost of sales. So if you're building something where you have a large cost of sales, then your risk is that much higher if things don't pan out. In the IT space, especially now in the development space, the only overhead is salaries. And the way we're working now, we don't even have a rent overhead. But normally you would have a rent overhead and a salary overhead. And no massive inventory costs and work in progress costs to handle. So that was the progression. But
So
on credit blockchain, getting into blockchain wasn't something that I saw. That was something that Rory, my business partner, saw. And he understood it and saw the opportunity there long before I did.
So something there that I just want to highlight is, on the one hand, the one business, as a part of it was coming down, crashing down, there was an opportunity that you recognized within what you were already doing, the IT part of that, and you turned that into a new business. And the second thing you mentioned is Rory, your business partner. It was actually surrounding yourself with people that were experts in some form of field, and then you guys actually then went into some form of a partnership, right?
Yeah, so over the years there have been various partners. Rory and I have been in partnership for a long time, and he supported me through some really difficult times too. So he believed ultimately more in me than in the business, and he was prepared to back me and the new
powerful,
he had the means to be able to do that. And now we're in a position where the business is actually on the rise and taking off. And yes, there is now growing demand for blockchain, and we've got an incredible team, and we're able to do the work. And from my side, I've always been more on the business development and the client interaction and understanding the client's needs and being able to understand how to meet that need, not necessarily coding.
Yeah, you've got a real gift with people. I remember, when I first visited your house and met you and some of the team, we had a brief conversation, and in my mind, I kind of saw it like, is this going to be some form of interview? Do I have to convince you, or do you have questions to ask me? And there was a massive amount of trust that you had. And after the conversation, when I went home, I was thinking to myself, it feels like I kind of agreed to something, but there was not really a question asked. So I got home and I spoke to Herman, one of my friends, Herman, and he was saying, did Alec also do that thing to you where he kind of made you feel like you agreed to something, but you're not really sure what it was? And then I think he explained it really, really well, or he verbalized it really well. And I think that's something about your gift of working with people. You understand what people are thinking, how they work. And it's one of those skills that I can see you've learned over time. And as a CEO focusing on bringing business in, I think, is crucial. What would you attribute your, let's call it just people skills or soft skills, emotional intelligence, these type of things to? Like, where in your life could you see the thing that really helped you develop that a lot? Because, in our environment, we live in a town full of students and everyone's academically focused. But at the end of the day, what makes your business successful is not necessarily your technical ability, but also your what's the right word? Attitude for working with people.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously marriage plays a big role, and I've got an awesome wife to support me, and has supported me through all the ups and downs. In the process, also having 4 children, and now having 4 grandchildren, one on the way shortly.
Full house.
So
congrats, by the way.
But I think my people skills really got honed through adventure racing. Adventure racing puts you into very pressured situations where you've got 4 individuals that have to work together to achieve a common goal.
Okay, and that would be, so if you say adventure race, that's a race where you get from point A to point B and you've got multiple disciplines that you need to execute, right?
Yeah, so the 3 main disciplines are some sort of running, hiking type leg, mountain biking, and canoeing. Those are the mainstay, but then they throw other things in as well. And it's an ultra endurance event that runs. The longer ones are, between 500 and 1,000 Ks, and you can be going nonstop for anything up to 5 days. And when people are on the top of the wrong mountain because the navigator's made a mistake, it's freezing cold in the middle of the night, and they're having sense of humor failures, and you learn a lot about how to work together, and I really credit a lot of my becoming more empathetic and understanding people. A lot of the people skills sort of came from adventure racing.
It's cool how
I was a lot more individualistic before that.
That's really cool. I mean, how sport had such a major impact on your life. Obviously your health on the one side, but also actually, helped you to grow. Something that I've seen in your life is you're probably the most disciplined person that I know. And I know you place a high value on exercising every day. You once said, we as a company thought one of our values should be exercising and people should be looking after themselves. And I said, maybe they should exercise like 3 times a week for 30 minutes at a time. And Alec mentioned that it was at least 45 minutes a day, twice a day, 5 days a week. And we all had such a good laugh. But I mean, that speaks to something of the discipline that you carry. Now, in your success as an entrepreneur, and I mean, we can see the success in many areas of your life, but specifically when it comes to entrepreneurship and running a business, which disciplines do you see the most valuable or fruitful in your life?
Making consistent gains, whether that's in business or in your sport or in your health, is really underestimated. So people look for quick wins, big wins. That's not what it's about. So it's about stacking small incremental wins on top of each other consistently over a long period of time. So you have to be able to handle delayed gratification. You have to be able to continually challenge and push yourself. Sport has really done that. Adventure racing, ultra endurance, obstacle course racing, being able to face unknown challenges and to be able to adapt to that. So there are definitely parallels between the two. Obstacle course racing was the first sport where I actually participated through because of my son, and actually got disqualified because I couldn't actually do one of the obstacles.
Oh, wow.
So that to me was a major challenge.
Yeah.
And that's when I put all the emphasis into actually ultra distance obstacle course racing.
So what I love about you, like when there's someone that tells you can't do something, you find a way to do it. And in your personality, I've seen this often, where a lot of people would see why you're not supposed to be doing something. You'd hold on to the sometimes it's just the one reason why you should.
Well, that's what we call the business. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, if you could think of maybe one example where you could get consistent gains in a business context, so I just want to try and make it practical for somebody listening. Because in exercise, I can kind of see it because your muscles are getting stronger a little bit by little bit. But what would you say would be a practical example in a business context?
The interesting question. You know, I mean, if you look at some of the sales cycles as an example,
Yeah.
some of them take a couple of years before they land and turn into meaningful business.
Yeah.
So you've got to build and maintain relationships and foster that over a really long period of time before it actually turns into meaningful business. And it's more about the relationship. And you know, I've been very blessed. So through all the ups and downs, the Lord has provided for myself, my wife, my family, my kids. And it's yeah. So it's really I think you need a really strong understanding of who you are in Christ. You need to really know what it is that you are passionate about and purposeful about, and you need to be able to work towards that, and that's something that I've been learning and developing more and more in recent years.
Okay.
And also putting more emphasis into mentoring and being able to take a step back in order to let the younger generation actually grow and flourish, instead of trying to micromanage everything. Just creating that space for other people to be able to come into their own.
Yeah, that's good. So what I hear you saying is in terms of small gains, so you said you're very relationship focused and relationships take a long time to build, is having a coffee or a lunch or a meeting with someone, being able to walk away and be like, okay, that relationship is a little bit better than it was before I came in here. Or sitting with a existing client or existing product that you've built and saying, it's better today than it was yesterday. And that continual incremental progress leads to long-term success.
Yeah, I mean, how do you actually ascertain where the opportunity is if you don't have that relationship?
It's very true.
So if you don't, if you're having a conversation with a client in a more social environment, and you can find out where their point of pain is and where the opportunity is, then you can join the dots and figure out what it is that you need to offer to provide and build a solution. But if you don't do that, then it's very difficult. And I think one of the other lessons that we've learned over the years is if you don't have a route to market, if you don't have access to the market, then don't even bother building the widget, whether that's software or hardware, because it might be the best thing since sliced bread, but if you can't sell it and access that demand, then your investment that you've spent into building and creating something is highly likely to go to waste.
So something that you mentioned now a few times is your relationship with the Lord. Now the Lord has helped you in the bigger picture of where you are today. So, practically speaking, how would you say the combination of your faith versus business works? Because I've seen a lot of people that try and split the two. My faith, I relate to Sundays or, my private side of life. And then business obviously is something different. And a lot of people see business as, the world. So how do you use these two things?
You're a whole person,
Yeah.
and it is absolutely key that you understand that and that there is no segregation. So if your wisdom comes from knowing the Lord and applying knowledge that you get, biblical knowledge in your life, so experientially learning to the point where it becomes wisdom, then you can apply that wisdom in your life. And that's where health comes into it, because if you are not healthy, then you are not in the best possible position to actually lead a victorious life.
Yeah.
And if you are healthy, then the next step is you need to be wealthy. So you need your wisdom from the Lord, you need your health and your health span, so live a strong and healthy life for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And then when you are generating wealth, the objective of that is, how do you bring glory to the Lord and how do you serve others? And in doing that, you will discover what it is that you do that you are really passionate about, and then you will realize that those desires were actually placed there by the Lord in the first place.
So, I think in the world of today, a lot of people thinking of business being a challenging space are scared to live out who they're actually supposed to be, or are scared of facing ethical circumstances where their faith and their business needs might clash. Have you ever faced challenging situations such as those that would ask you to compromise morals in one way? And I mean, how did you handle those?
Yeah, without going into detail, certainly that has been a factor, and it's really been simple and straightforward. It just won't compromise. And that has cost a lot of business, but it has also been an unbelievable source of protection, because I could quite easily have been involved and used Sahara and the Guptas as a supplier into one of my projects, and the fact that it didn't work out well was actually a huge blessing in disguise. At the time, I was really disappointed that it hadn't worked out. But in hindsight, now I can see the Lord's hand of protection on me and on the business. So, it's not every opportunity you should pursue. You really do need to have some discernment too.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's well done on the one hand for being able to say no to the immoral ways of doing business. And I think what you've also mentioned earlier is that God was able to, I mean, you've seen God's provisions through all of those ups and downs. So you don't have to say yes to some whack way of doing business. You can just actually follow the Lord and be consistent.
From a business point of view, you are inclined to take on business that you would ideally not want to. That's just to meet cash flow requirements, and that's a practical reality.
But not for immoral reasons. I mean, that's just for cash flow reasons. So if you say you don't want to, it's typically like an industry you didn't want to work in, or a client necessarily you didn't want to work with.
Yeah, it's you've got to realize that your scarcest resource is actually time. So if you're working on a project, even if you're being paid and it's a dead end project, then you would be better off not doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So what motivated you to stay disciplined in the ups and downs that you, I mean, inevitably did have? Because that's what every entrepreneur will face.
Yeah, I think the sport has always been an outlet. So the tougher things get, the harder I train, and then the fitter and stronger I am, the easier it is to handle the rough parts from a business point of view. But it's been very complementary. So even through the business ups and downs, we have maintained health and sanity in sport. And really I've really enjoyed that part of the journey.
So one last question from my side, and then we can land it, Alec. Thanks for being so transparent with all of the things that I have asked. And if you could go back to my age, or even think about a student, or someone just younger, if you could learn one thing at our age that would have helped you throughout your entire journey, every aspect of your life. I know it's a big ask to say just one thing, but what would that one thing be, and why?
I think the key to it, and this is your personal life and your personal journey, is understanding that the desires that are placed in your heart are placed there by the Lord in order to fulfill them. And your journey is about becoming all that you were created to be. So over time, and whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you need to have a clear vision of where it is that you are wanting to go, something that you are really passionate and purposeful about, and you need to understand where you are at this point in time in order to be able to plan and plot a course that will take you from where you are to where you want to be. And that develops and changes as you go through life. So it's not a constant. I mean, some people are born with a desire to be a pilot, and they become a pilot, and they are satisfied and fulfilled by that. And everybody is different. But if you don't know where you want to go, how on earth are you going to get there?
Yeah.
And if you don't know where you are right now, then how can you plot a route to get where you want to be? So the key is, and from adventure racing, navigating, if you don't know where you want to go, and you don't know where you are on the map, then you're lost. So you can be saved, and you can have a relationship with the Lord, but your passion and your purpose, and you need a vision, and you need to be able to become and grow into what you were created to be. And you're a gift to the world, and you need to step up to the plate and look after your health, and you need to do what needs to be done. And it's a lot easier if you do have something that you're passionate, purposeful about, and that you do have a vision of where you want to go. Then when things are tough, it's a lot easier to stay the course.
It's very good. I like it. Very good. I look forward to having a future discussion with you on finding out what you were created for, and helping people to understand that, because at our age we see that so many times where people like, I just want to know what I was called for or created for, or am I even doing the right thing with my life?
Yeah, so I'll give you a tip. And if you don't know exactly what it is that your specific purpose is, you certainly do know what you don't want and where you don't want to be and end up.
Yeah.
So you can work away from where you don't want to be, and your decisions, keep them simple. Is this beneficial for me? Is this beneficial for others? And if the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, if it's not beneficial for you personally, and it's not beneficial for others, then why on earth are you doing it? And then if you can measure up your decisions that you make on that basis, is this, if you don't know where you want to go, but you do know where you've been or you don't want to go, then you can make decisions that will take you further away from that. And by default, you will get closer to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It also brings back into play the concept of small gains. Move a little bit further away from what you don't want, and you get a little bit closer from what you do want. And I kind of see it as this oscillating, almost like an oscillating wave, that you're going to get closer to the middle, and the size or the amplitude of those waves will get smaller throughout life. Like in the beginning, you're going to try many different things, but you're going to get closer and closer to what it is over time. But yeah, Alec, that's all from me. Thank you so much. Appreciate the fact that you're open about these things, and great to be able to have a chat with you. I look forward to having another conversation with you in due time. Thanks, Alec.
Thanks for being here today. Your support is invaluable. Please share our podcast with others who might enjoy it. Stay tuned for more great discussions with entrepreneurs and leaders. Follow us on TikTok for extra content. Until then, stay curious and take care. Thanks.